Question: how is Jesus the true and better Passover lamb? As we know, the Passover is the final plague that God brought to the Egyptians when Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, did not listen, and he enslaved for many years the people of Israel. So God commanded him to let his people go. Let my people go. But he did not listen. He refused. And therefore, God brought 10 different plagues, and the final one being the Passover. But this plague consisted of God passing through, and that's where the name comes from, passing through Egypt at midnight and striking down the firstborn of each family. But here's the thing: God gave a remedy to the Israelites to be spared from this plague, which was the Passover lamb. God instructed them to get a lamb with no defects and sacrifice it, and then put the blood on the doorframe of their house so that when God comes and he sees the blood on the doorframe, he will simply pass over without striking anybody in the house. But now the question is, how is Jesus related to this? Well, it's just like the sacrificial lamb was used for protection from the wrath of God, right? Jesus is also sacrificed to protect us and save us from the wrath of God. And here's another important point is that another detail is that we can first see in Exodus chapter 2, verse 5, that the lamb should be with no blemish, with no defect, right? It should be a perfect lamb. And Jesus, in that same way, he has no defect, right? He has no sin. He's perfect. And so he's the perfect sacrifice in this case. But here's where Jesus differentiates from the Passover lamb. If we look closely back to the story, the goal of the Passover wasn't just to liberate the Israelites from Egypt, but it was to give them the promised land, right? Where they could flourish as a nation. But if we keep reading through the story, if we keep reading through the Bible, we learn that they did not make it. They didn't make it to the promised land. Only their descendants did. Not even Moses made it. And so and then if you keep reading even more, then you learn that the Israelites fell back into slavery. So, now you need to think about what is going on here. Why did that happen? And the reason is that even after being liberated, there was still a problem. And that problem was sin. So, although they weren't slaves anymore, they were still slaves to sin. Because the Passover lamb did not fix the sin problem. But here's the thing: Jesus does fix the sin problem. His blood is greater than that from the lamb. It says in Hebrew that he entered once and for all into the holy places, not by means of blood of goats and calves, but by means of his own blood, thus securing an eternal redemption. His blood will take our sin away and take us to the promised land. And so that is why Jesus is the true and better Passover lamb.